Good morning, students. Welcome to my virtual classroom. Today we are going to start with a very new chapter of mathematics from class 10th, chapter number 4, that is quadratic equation. Before we start with the chapter, you can always join our live classes through Woo app. The contact detail is already mentioned here. That is the contact detail. Okay, you can join, you can send your request through WhatsApp, and I'll be happy to make you the member of that particular group. So let's start with the chapter, that is quadratic equation of class 10th. Proceeding to the contents here, first we'll be talking about the history and then the introduction of quadratic equations, roots of the equations, solution of a quadratic equation, and there are three ways of finding the solutions of a quadratic equation, that is by factorization method and by completing the square method, and the last is by formula method. And then we'll be talking about nature of roots and then applications of quadratic equation. This particular thing will teach you why are we studying this particular chapter. So we'll be understanding through few application problems. So to begin with history part of it, so many people believe that Babylonians were the first to solve quadratic equations. Okay, many people think of that. However, for instance, they knew how to find two positive numbers with a given positive sum and a given positive product. And this problem is equivalent to solving a quadratic equation of the form x squared minus px plus q equals to 0. So this particular chapter, quadratic equations, is like previous to this particular chapter we have gone through polynomials, where we have studied about quadratic polynomials. And quadratic polynomial are those polynomials whose degree is 2. So Greek mathematician Euclid developed a geometrical approach for finding out lengths, which in our present day terminologies are solutions of quadratic equation. Solving of quadratic equations in general form is often credited to ancient Indian mathematicians. Okay, so in fact Brahmagupta gave an explicit formula to solve the quadratic equations of the form ax squared plus bx is equals to c. Moving to the next part of it, later Sri Dhar Acharya derived a formula now known as the quadratic formula. Okay, and for solving a quadratic equations by the method of completing the square. An Arab mathematician Al-Khwarizmi also studied quadratic equations of different types. Abraham Barhia Ha-Nasi, in his book Liber Embadorum, published in Europe in CE, that is Christ era 1145, gave complete solutions of different quadratic equations. Now let's talk about the introduction part now. So before we understand what is quadratic equations, I have already discussed that it is all the way from quadratic polynomials whose degree is 2. So equations like here, quadratic means degree 2. Okay, and what is that equation means here? An equation is a statement of equality. You might have seen this equal to sign everywhere, isn't it? In equations part we see equal to sign. So equal to sign that between two expressions, one is on the left hand side, another is to the right hand side. So if you see this particular example here, 5x plus 6 is equals to 2, x is the variable. So an equation is a statement of equality between two expressions for particular values of the variable. Okay, so this particular symbol shows the statement of equality, that is equation. Now talking about the degree of an equation, as I have already mentioned, that quadratic polynomial, a quadratic equation, basically that equation will be having a degree of 2. So if you check out the first example here, that is 2x plus 5 is equals to 0, see the value of the power of x here in the first part, 2x. So the power of x is 1 here, isn't it? So that is the highest power, so the degree will be 1. Similarly for the second, okay, moving to the third, if you see here the degree is 2 for single variable, and here the degree is 2 again 2-degree equations in two variables. And for the third is the highest power is, let me erase that one, the power is x power 3. So highest power of x is 3, so degree is 3. Similarly for the next one, that is the highest power is 3. 3-degree equations in two variable. How come this is 3-degree equations? X square y plus xy plus x equals to 2. If you talk about only x, the degree will be 2, not 3. Okay, x square y plus x, y plus x, the degree is not 3. Alright, the degree is 2 here. It is wrongly printed out here. Moving to the next part of it, quadratic equations. A quadratic equation in the variable x is an equations of the form ax square plus bx plus c is equals to 0, where a, b, c are real numbers and a is not equal to 0. If a is equals to 0, in that case this particular product will be 0, so that becomes the linear equation. Okay, bx plus c equals to 0. So a should not be equal to 0 in any conditions. For example, 2x square plus x minus 300 equals to 0 is an example of a quadratic equation. Similarly, the other examples are already given here. You can just pause the video and you can write your notes. So what is the standard form of quadratic equations? The standard form of quadratic equations are always represented by ax square plus bx plus c is equals to 0. Okay, that is the standard form of quadratic equations, where a and b are the coefficients of x square and x respectively. I mean to say here that a is the coefficient of x square and b is the coefficient of x and c is the constant here. Moving to the next part, the roots of the equation. In general, a real number alpha is called the root of the quadratic equation. So what is the root? Root is nothing but the solution of that equation. Okay, just like finding the value of a linear equation, where you find suppose it is 2x plus 3 is equals to 0, for example. Okay, so what is the value of x here? X is equals to minus 3 by 2 by transposition method. This method is called as transposition. We are transferring the position of the constants to get the value of the variable x. Okay, so what is the solution of x here? The solution of x is minus 3 by 2. So if you look at the example here, example is x square plus x minus 6 equals to 0. So now x is equals to 2, we can take then, if you take x is equals to 2, then what is the value? It becomes 0. That means what? The value of x from here will be 2. That is the zeros of the quadratic polynomial. Okay, that you have already studied in the previous chapter of polynomials. Okay, in polynomial chapter we have studied about how to get the zeros of the quadratic polynomial. That is same as the, like, suppose x is equals to alpha is solution of quadratic equations, or that satisfies the quadratic equations, means that value will satisfy the quadratic equations. So moving to the next part of it, solutions of a quadratic equation by factorization method. So this particular method will be taught in the next class, and for your homeworks, just make sure that you follow these instructions. Instructions will be homework notebook have to be maintained and produced by all on our classroom meet, and even after sending homeworks on WhatsApp, maintaining a hard copy is mandatory. First point and second point goes to you, and this point, homework log, will be sent to parents every alternate day. This will not be happening here. Okay, if you don't follow these two steps, then we'll move to the third step. Okay, we have to take actions on third step as well. All right, so that's all from the first session of this particular chapter. We'll meet again next day for the remaining content of that particular chapter. Thank you very much.